I should have planted the mics more intentionally so that I could have faster.
Oh, yeah.
We have red tape. Orange.
Are you gonna go down there and tape it up?
No.
We have blue electrical, don't we?
We do. This is easier. We also used to have red.
Red's gone.
Why?
I got used up, I guess. Unless it's hiding up there. They're turning them on now.
Okay.
Testing.
I should also probably tell them they can mute it if they want so that they don't get hot mic.
How's everyone doing today? Thumbs up.
Something. Saying something.
Hi.
What's up?
How is it going?
Up Ben Holland.
Oh,
Yeah, no one's been squatting.
I heard.
But otherwise, that would be
Also, I was going to come down and say if it was super fun, I would like have mushroom except for milk. But right now it's not like that's what it is.
I think I'm going to probably fill up my
Okay. If you notice that, well, I know what you're supposed to do. Yeah. I
I did want that.
Yeah, I saw it. That's what I saw.
She won.
Yeah.
With
That's
the dog. Oh, that's good. Don't you do this first?
yeah. That's what
So I do think that.
Yeah, that's first. She's just hiding out next to it.
okay. Perfect. Then I'm assuming tech is all set up.
Yeah. It's been this way for 5 months.
I haven't seen anything.
I was gonna say it's something.
Yeah. I'm talking monitoring the process of being the place.
I do need to talk to him.
Oh, so.
Well, I know.
Oh, and then
I know where one of them is. I did know where one of them is. I just need to tell him right now.
oh.
I need to tell him, hey, you're okay to turn it off. And then you turn it back on. We'll take exactly what you need to do that. Your own control over it. And then I also need to ask moderators if they want me to cut mic in the case of escalation. But I don't. Yeah, I think it'd be kind of absurd if we got to.
That was, it's like a Jubilee. It's like a Jubilee video.
Like if tech needs to cut mic and reset, like y'all should be able to, like, you have 2 moderators. You should be good.
I don't think that was
No, I don't need it. But points to stats.
cool. Well, if you need anything, let me know.
Will do. I'll be here.
Honestly, I don't know how many people are going to show because there's no. It's going to be midterms, but
Hi guys, how are we doing today?
Yeah.
Hello, good morning, wake up, it's like 6 o'clock guys. How are we doing today on this Monday?
Yeah.
Good, okay. So my job is to entertain you for the next 10 minutes. I'm just kidding. I just want you guys to be able to sit in only the middle section, please. So if you are on the side wings, if you're on the floor, you're fine. But if you're on the side wings, please just move to the middle section for us. And I'll tell everybody else the same thing when they come in as well. Thank you so much. I know it's annoying to have to move. Hi guys, if you're just now joining us, please sit in the middle section anywhere that you would like. We're just not sitting on the left or the right.
in the middle. They were gonna talk about education, but there wasn't. Yeah, if there's a subject that you know well, things totally ask. If they're allowed to. That's it seems so different. And do your own research.
Where's the sport?
We don't have the budget for that.
for our friends just not coming in, if we could please just sit in the middle section, just not on either side of the wings, just in the middle, please. Anywhere that you would like. Hi guys, for our friends just now coming in, if you guys could please just sit in this middle section, just not over here or over here, but just anywhere in this middle section, please. Welcome guys, for all our friends that's not coming in, if you could just sit on the left or, opposite. Don't sit on the left or the right, just sit in the middle sections, please. Perfect. Not on the sides, just in the middle. Anywhere that you want. We have some spots still in the front row, we have lots in the second row that are pretty much front. Or you can sit anywhere that you want in the middle. If you guys have not seen yet, we have some goodies up at the front. Both groups debating today have free buttons and stickers and constitutions and lots of cool things to check out. So if you guys want to check that out while you're waiting, we still have like 10 minutes to go. Please feel free to grab whatever you want. For our friends just now joining us, if you guys could please sit anywhere in the middle. Or I will personally come ask you to sit in the middle. How are we feeling today? Good? Give me some energy. I know from my neck. Wake up a little bit. How are we doing today? Good? Good. I see a few familiar faces. I see a Ronda Rousey t-shirt up there. I had the same one. I like it. We're doing great. Just got some freedom stuff in the front. Our matching. We got some campaign shirts out in the audience. For our friends just now joining us, if you guys would please sit anywhere in the middle section. So not on either side of me, but just anywhere in the middle. We have so many seats. Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Sam, we saved you some spot. No, I don't want to smell like Diva.
For our friends just now joining us, if you guys could please sit anywhere in this middle section, so we're not sitting on either side of me, but just anywhere in the middle. We have a couple seats here in the front. We have lots of seats here in the second row that are pretty much the front row. And we have lots in the middle. I don't see any Chiefs here in the audience. I see a Cardinals little shirt. I'm a Royals fan. It's awkward. We beat you in the World Series. It's okay. Do we have any Chiefs shirt in the audience? I don't see any. That's rare. For those of us coming in, please sit anywhere in the middle section. We have lots of seats up here in the second and third row. Okay, for those of us coming in, please sit anywhere in the middle section. We're just not sitting on either side of me. So anywhere in the middle, we have lots of seats open in the second row. We have a couple up here in the front if you want a better view. We have one over here in the front. By yourself. Judgment. For those of you who have been here a long time, I'm sorry that I'm repeating myself a lot. I know it's obnoxious. We're only going to be sitting in the middle section today, guys. Thank you so much. I know it's annoying. We have a couple seats up here in the front. We have lots of seats here in the middle. If we start to fill up, I'm going to actually ask people on the outside to move to the middle. Just be prepared. Welcome, welcome. We still have a couple minutes before we're going to be starting today, guys. So if you haven't yet, please check out the tables up front. Each group debating today has tables with merchandise that is free to take. So please check that out. Use the restroom if you need to. We still have a couple minutes. Last call for potty breaks before we start. Can you tell that I watch children a lot? For those of us just now joining, we are going to be sitting anywhere in the middle section. I have a few seats up here in the second row that you can actually get to from the front. If there are like a couple or a few seats in between you guys, can you please just like move a little bit closer? I know it's awkward. I know it's so awkward. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Just that way our friends on the end can get in easily. You don't have like a butt in your face.
We have to walk here.
Last call for people visiting the table before the event. The tables will also be up there in drawer at the end.
Oh, yeah. You do.
You have a wireless
Our hosts up at the top, Miss Megan.
That's what we wanted to test was like
Our hosts up at the top. Are we ready to start? Do you want to wait a couple minutes? I'll check in 2 minutes. We are only sitting in the middle section today, you guys. Thank you. We have lots of seats up here, like on the end, on my right, your left. Lots of seats here in the third row.
I think they wanted to just be just text them. I mean, I could see that being good for image.
For those of us just now coming in, we're sitting anywhere in the middle section. We have a few seats up here in the second row. We have lots here on the end. We have a set of 4 right here. We give it like a set of like 6 or so up there to the top.
I think I just get I heard that there was going to be the same
If you are actually a member of either party, please feel free to sit on the floor in the chairs if you would like. You don't have to, but you are totally allowed. I'm just throwing it out there in case you want a better view. We are only sitting in the middle section today, guys. So if you want some seats up here, we have one seat up here on the end. Once again, if you are a member of either group that is debating today, you can feel free to sit on the floor if you want, not here in the chairs. Are we excited? Yes! Perfect. Perfect. It's a Monday, but we need some energy today. I appreciate it. All of my energy is just pretend. Just really tired. All right, friends, we are going to go ahead and get started. Once again, we do have the 2 tables up front that you can check out free merchandise after the event. And we are only sitting in the middle section. Thank you so much for listening to me for like 15 minutes. I know that was a lot. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. What a great turnout. This is awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I am here to welcome you to the MSU Clubs Debate, which engages the MSU Turning Point USA Club and the MSU College Democrats in a lively discussion of current issues impacting our nation. I want to thank you all for being here. Speaking on behalf of MSU and the clubs represented at this event, we truly appreciate your support and your engagement in the debate process, and your interest in the issues that are deeply affecting the nation and the world as a whole. My name is Andrew Reed. I am co-moderator for Turning Point USA, and I'm an active member of the advisory board of the McQuarrie College of Health and Human Services, as well as a contributor to the MSU Foundation and a supporter of MSU's Turning Point USA chapter. I will help serve as your host and a co-moderator this evening. And I'd like to have Elizabeth introduce herself as well as my co-moderator partner.
Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Dudash-Buskirk. I am the head of the Socio-Political Communication Program in the Department of Communication, Media, Journalism, and Film. A civil civic discourse is possibly the one thing that Charlie Kirk and I agreed on. That might be it, but it's an important part of our democratic republic. So thank you all for being here to witness all of these fantastic students as we discuss some very important issues of the day.
Let me do these guys first.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it back on over.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. Anyway, introducing the participants. We are Turning Point USA. We exist to identify and empower students at Missouri State University to fight for the values of conservatism and freedom. We meet on Mondays at 6 p.m. in Strong Hall, room 003 in the basement. I'd like to introduce the Turning Point team. If you could stand after I mention your name. Carlos Abrams. Nick Bagani. Smith. And finally, but not least, John Osborne. And to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. So I did forget to introduce the most important part of our evening, which is my dog, Percy. He is a diabetic alert dog, and he is in fact a full poodle, and he is a miniature. So I'm sorry you might hear him whimper. We're still training each other. I am very excited to be here to introduce the College Democrats. Some of you may or may not know that we have a couple of political organizations here on this campus for you students. I believe we have a Democrat Socialist Society on campus still, is that correct? We did last year. There are no, not as of yet, young college Republicans, but I've been hearing rumors that that is in the works. So if you are a student who wants to be involved and these two organizations don't do it for you, you've got more on the way and some that you can join up with if you would like. I don't ever tell anybody how to participate, I just tell them to participate. I think that's the most important thing. Tonight, I am excited to introduce to you the College Democrats that will be speaking. I've got here Hunter Raycop. Jaden Eccles. Audra Hauser. Sophie Aslan. And Xander Burke. And I almost cut off his applause. I do that a lot. If you are interested in joining the College Democrats, they meet on Monday nights as well. They meet from 7 to 8, and we're in room 300 in Strong Hall every Monday at 7 p.m.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Now we get into the formal part of this. Bear with me. Prior to the opening of the debate process, I want to also thank the MSU clubs and their leadership for entertaining this opportunity to engage in productive, open, professional dialogue on critical issues affecting our country. Shortly after the turn of the century, during the generation that most of our students have been born into, forces have been working to divide our two main political parties and separate thinking and ideas into two polarized camps. This unsustainable situation can be overcome through this type of comprehensive and beneficial dialogue, which seeks to understand, to reach common ground, and who better to do this than the people enrolled in higher education at Missouri State University. This is a mandatory statement. This is not an audience participation event. This event will be a peaceful one. No aggression, profanity, hate speech, excessive interruption, or heckling will be tolerated. You will receive one warning before you are asked to leave. On behalf of Turning Point USA, thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy the debate. I'm going to do a quick overview of the format for the debate. There are 3 topics in discussion that we are going to have tonight. Each topic will receive approximately 30 minutes of engagement as a process within the debate. The topics are fiscal responsibility, abortion, which is legality, methods, and commonality, etc. Immigration is the 3rd topic, including ICE policy and border security. For each of these topics, we will have an opening statement by the party that selected the topic, to follow by the other side opening statement. The opening statements will be 1 to 2 minutes long. After the opening statements from each side, we will have a 3-minute clarification process. This means that each of the sides are able to have a brief dialogue of 3 minutes to clarify the terms or the issues or the wording that was used within their opening statement, just for clarification. At the end of that period, we'll probably engage in about a 20-minute period of back and forth discussion on each of the topics. About 5 minutes prior to the end of the discussion period, Elizabeth, who is performing the timekeeping function for us, will issue a warning that we're about 5 minutes away from the end of the discussion. At the end of the topic discussion, we're going to move into a 1 to 2 closing statement. So each side will again be able to do a closing statement on the topic. And then we will reintroduce the next process, next topic for the next period. Does that make sense to everybody? No questions on that? Okay, is everybody ready to go?
Yeah!
So our first topic is fiscal responsibility, and I'd like to introduce the Democrats to be able to do a 1 to 2 minute opening statement on that topic. Thank you.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Yes. All right. My name's Hunter to start out with, and the Republicans and the current administration are unserious about fiscal responsibility. Republicans claim they want to bring down the debt whenever Democrats are in office, but seemingly magically forget all about it when they are in office. They want to balance the budget, but once they are in power, cut revenue with tax breaks and increase spending, ballooning the deficit. The current administration talks about waste, fraud, and abuse, but cuts those same agencies that go after the fraud, such as the IRS. Instead of funding agencies that will bring in revenue, the Trump administration focuses on useless agencies like the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE as it's more commonly known. This agency, despite tough rhetoric, did not save anywhere close to the original $2 trillion promised. Republicans talk about fiscal responsibility, but have increased the ICE budget over $1 billion and increased the military budget to over $1 trillion. While they have drastically increased expenditures, they also drastically decrease revenues with tax cuts that disproportionately favor the wealthy. Compare this to Democratic leadership. The last balanced budget was under Bill Clinton. Obama was able to drastically decrease deficit spending after the 2008 recession, and Biden attempted to increase tax revenue through funding the IRS. As such, it is clear that Democrats are better when it comes to fiscal responsibility compared to Republicans.
Now the opening
Can you hear me?
statement.
All right. Thank you guys for all coming out tonight. It's good to see everybody. My name's Nick Bogani. I'm with Turning Point. And so when we're discussing fiscal responsibility, we have to first define what is finance. And finance is the buying and selling and trade of goods and services. And not just the goods and services, but the values, the moral values that are behind those goods and services, and the betterment of the people that are in society when those are traded. And in order to protect finance, it is necessary to have good stewardship. And so this good stewardship also requires prudence at both the individual level and the governmental level. And at the individual level, good stewardship is necessary for the provision and protection of each man for his family and for himself. And that is necessary for the principle of self-preservation. And it is also necessary for a man to freely contribute to his society, which is necessary for charity and the betterment of society in that matter. And so for good stewardship at the governmental level, that is arguably more important. And so when you have good stewardship at the government level, that will inspire the consciences of the people at that level. And when their consciences are inspired, their moral imagination will be inspired. And when their moral imagination is inspired, they will be fiscally responsible themselves. When they are fiscally responsible themselves, they will create a better well-being for themselves and for the people that are surround them. And so, It is also necessary for the scope and limitation of government. And when you have this scope and limitation, this is necessary for good governance. So in order to preserve self-preservation, charity, and good governance in society, it is necessary to have fiscal responsibility, and that's justified through organizations like DOGE and good tax policy and the limitation of the welfare state.
Thank you both. Now we're going to engage in a 3-minute period of clarification of terms. If there's anything that needs clarified in each of your statements, go right ahead.
So when it comes to the moral values you mentioned, what are some examples of some moral values when it comes to fiscal policy?
When it comes to fiscal policy, I would say prudence is a big one, just being wise about how you use your wealth. And also just using your money. Transparency is a big thing as well, especially when it comes to DOGE. In DOGE, you have to have transparency in order to know where those funds are going and for there to be a trust of the people as to where those funds are going as well, or fidelity. And then also, justice in the case that are these funds also being used, or are they? We are concerned with the preservation of those funds by where if a man's entitled to his labor, for example, all the fruits of his labor, then a man is entitled to own his entire property as well, in accordance with justice, as necessary for self-preservation.
And then any questions for us, just to verify?
Yeah, so when you say waste, fraud, and abuse, what exactly do you mean by this?
So we're more so referring to the common Republican talking point. We saw this out of DOGE, we saw this from congressional Republicans. There is this completely false idea that we can actually balance the budget and afford all these things if we go after fraud and abuse. Of course, there's some level of fraud that is always going to happen on the federal level, but there's no evidence that this is so widespread that you're going to be able to significantly reduce the deficit by going after fraud. And I would point towards DOGE as an example, which was a complete and utter total failure. We can do the open discussion now, unless if there's anything else you need to clarify.
I think that's all I had for you. So.
Okay, we'll begin a 20-minute discussion period.
So I guess to start out, you mentioned transparency, and I agree. What do you think is the most transparent thing that Trump has done compared to previous administration when it comes to spending?
Well,
one thing I think is really important is from past administrations, I don't think I've ever really seen that much of an effort to find out where our money's going, where it's being spent, where the waste and fraud is coming from. I think that's something that I've really liked with this administration is that is a large issue. I think it's been, 8 years in a row now that our government has failed their audit. I think that is a very, very big problem, and it's something that I think this administration has done, at least attempted to do well, is track down where that money's going and try to put an end to some of that wasteful spending.
Are you referring to the Pentagon when it comes to failing the audit?
Yes.
So 8 years ago, that would be under Donald Trump. Just to be clear, for the first administration, when it started failing the audits, right? Yeah, all right. And then also, not to be rude, but it kind of feels like, I agree on surface with what you're saying. You should have good stewardship. People in government should have virtues. But I can't think of a single example of Trump being more transparent than previous administrations. Under previous administrations, you can always go and look under where Congress is appropriating their funds. This has always been publicly available information. That has not changed between administrations. So I guess if there's a concrete example you can point towards where Trump is just being more clear.
Well, I'm not necessarily, talking that, Trump has done everything perfect, because he obviously he has some hang-ups, and but this is not in essence about Trump, and this is not about, I'm not agreeing with everything DOGE has done either. I'm just agreeing with the necessity for organizations like DOGE, for fiscal responsibility and for the transparency. So when you have that transparency, you have people that will be able to trust our institutions more, and when you have that is for a more prosperous society and one that will function in the way that is meant to.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like I vote for Democrats. I'm a strong supporter of the party. I don't agree with them on everything. They're not perfect. But when people ask me why do I support Democrats, I can point to these concrete examples, and it is kind of frustrating. And you know, I'm here to be educated. So if I'm wrong, I'm perfectly able to be corrected. But I can't think of a single example where Trump has been more transparent. If anything, Trump generally is less transparent. When it came to his first administration, this doesn't exactly relate to fiscal policy, but there were drone strikes in Yemen that he obfuscated from the American public. When it comes to Doge, people were going in, breaking the law, looking at files, getting classified information that they weren't authorized to. I don't think that's transparency or a fair government.
Well, once again, I'm not going to praise everything Trump's done. I'm not going to praise everything Doge has done. But once again, I would like to reiterate, this is about the existence of an organization like Doge and people like Trump or like people or good leadership. Because you know you're not going to have perfect leaders. You know there's a difference between having good billionaires and bad, morally rightly ordered billionaires and morally wrongly ordered billionaires. The morally rightly ordered billionaires are the ones that are good stewards of their money and they care about the greater good of society. You have the ill-formed ones. The ill-formed ones, they only care about the betterment of themselves and their families and not the entire society. And so you have to make that distinction. And so it doesn't matter it does matter who's in charge, but it doesn't matter that the organization itself exists.
One thing I wanted to say was, you talk a lot about how you don't always agree with Trump's policies and stuff, but why do you support conservatives who are backing Trump, who are backing Doge that has promised such big cuts but has delivered so little?
Once again, I'm not supporting the I never said I supported the conservatives behind it. I'm just supporting the idea of having Doge. Once again, people aren't perfect. Or you have people on the left, people on the right. Nobody's perfect. And so, I'm just talking about Doge in general. And I didn't bring any of the conservative people that were actually backing Trump for what he did. I'm not invoking any of them. I'm just talking about the Doge as a whole.
So I guess here's the frustrating thing. Growing up, I grew up in a very conservative household, and one thing I always heard is how bad participation trophies are. And it feels like this is a giant participation trophy for this administration. I mean, you still haven't pointed to a single example where they have cut spending, where they've actually balanced the deficit, where they've found any significant levels of fraud. And I think, we can appeal to these ideas, and I think that's important, especially when it comes to pushing the country in a certain direction. But will you admit that Doge was a complete, utter failure?
I wouldn't say. There were some things I personally don't think that they should have had I agree with there were some things with USAID that were kind of wrong, that were in accordance with the truth, allowing the drag shows in Brazil, I think, and things like that. That's just, people might disagree with me, but those are not things that everybody agrees with.
Yeah, I also think when you look at a lot of the things that have been caught with Doge, that in itself is a success. Because we may not have hit the goal with that organization, but the fact that it did point to a lot of issues that were, for the most part, unbeknownst to the public, I think that is a huge success, and I think that's something we need to keep pursuing. I don't think that's something we should back off of. I think it's not something that's going to be fixed in 6 months or 1 year or 2 years or 4 years. That needs to be a continuous process where we are seeking transparency and where our money's going, and making sure that the public supports wherever that ends up resulting to.
Do you think that supporting a agency like Doge that is going after the IRS, that is firing auditors, is a good way to promote fiscal responsibility?
I would say it kind of depends. One big thing with Doge was it wasn't just looking after fraud, it was also looking after incompetence. I don't think it's a secret that there's a ton of incompetency within our government, just from a holistic perspective. And if cutting some of that incompetency away through firing people who are not performing to the standard in which they were hired, I think that is a really efficient way of saving the taxpayer dollars.
I have a question for you guys. Would you be in support of an organization like Doge, not Doge in its current form, but but in the future, if it were to actually, go toward cutting fraud and the transparent and actually pursuing transparency as you guys see it?
I think we have that with many of the organizations already. We look at what Doge was formerly under the Obama administration. It was all about efficiency and updating old systems to make them more efficient and better with spending. Also, we can look at the IRS. IRS is very important for going after fraud. We talk about money laundering. They also do stuff with narcotics. But generally, they also focus on going after people who have underreported taxes, and that's how we get our revenue. So making sure that we have a fully funded IRS is important to make sure that we have all the revenue we need so we can spend it on programs for the people.
Yeah, so I don't think efficiency is the same thing as necessarily looking at fraud. Efficiency has to do with government overreach, and it has to do with good governance. Looking at fraud is more about transparency and looking at the truthfulness of which is veracity. And so you have to make the distinction there. So,
Do you think the IRS would be an effective agency for going after fraud, like tax fraud?
I think there's a conflict of interest there. You have the IRS. I mean, they do people's taxes, but you probably need organizations outside of the IRS to look at fraud. That's why accounting firms. I was at a Republican meeting here a couple of weeks ago, and this treasurer guy came in and he said that the audits that are done in the Treasury Department are done by outside firms, like private firms, like KPM, for example, the biggest CPA in town. So I would say private audits are probably more beneficial.
Wait, so if you pay someone to privately audit your taxes, they have a conflict of interest too, correct? Not saying the IRS might have a conflict of interest, but so does any private organization as well.
And that comes down to due diligence, doing your due diligence as well as stewardship. You're right, when you're paying someone to do your taxes, if they do it wrong, who gets in trouble? It's still you at the end of the day. You have to do your due diligence. That is what Doge was for. You talk about relying on the IRS to capture a lot of this fraud. I don't think anyone's saying that the IRS isn't useful for that, but Doge was doing audits on the IRS as well. It's an external check and balance to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do because they are such a viable resource in capturing a lot of the things that Doge was trying to do as well.
To be clear, Doge didn't really do anything. They went after USAID, which isn't waste, fraud, or abuse. That's approved by the Congress. I think that they fired a few people, but I'm not even sure if that had any effect on the budget. Just look, when Elon Musk first got control of Doge, he promised $2 trillion. And we got, I think, less than $1 billion of cuts. And I feel like that's just a complete and total failure. And we can appeal to these higher ideas all we want, but at the end of the day, things matter, results matter. And we can't just go on and say, well, on principle, I think that having an agency that looks at, we tried this thing and it failed. Now you can say, maybe we should try it again and try it a different way, but you admit, Trump totally failed in every conceivable way when it came to stopping, what is considered Democratic radical spending.
Once again, they may not have hit their goal of $2 trillion. $1 billion is not nothing. Cutting out $1 billion in waste is not saying, oh, they did absolutely nothing. Once again, look at how quickly they cut that $1 billion. What we are saying is there needs to be an organization like Doge that is continuously seeking fraud and for transparency in finding a lot of these issues out.
So yeah, sure, maybe $1 billion. It's something, but there's orders of magnitude to this thing. I think we spent, the last budget was around $5.5 trillion. 1 billion, I think, we do the math. Yeah, that's 1/1000th of a trillion. So we're talking about 1/4,000. And then, Trump, finds this $1 billion and then immediately increases ICE's budget 5 times, over $100 billion spent on ICE. That completely, not only does it counteract whatever Doge found, but it completely blows it out of the water. Same with military spending. So, like I said, we can go on and say, well, they found this thing and we do need an organization like this. Also, here's another thing. Is there even any proof that there's all this fraud happening? Or is it just like something that's stated as a truism?
I mean, I think it's kind of crazy to just say, is there any fraud happening? I mean, when you look at what's happening with all the money we're sending to Ukraine, for example, a lot of that we know has been put in not the right places. A lot of that was stolen by the politicians. You look at what's happening in Minnesota. That kind of stuff, I think it's really ignorant to assume that isn't happening anywhere. When you have an institution as large as our government, people are going to constantly try to take advantage of that.
So you say we know that people are stealing money in Ukraine from Ukrainian politicians are stealing this money. Is there any proof of this?
Well, even if they're not stealing, it's still against the will of a lot of people. There's a lot of people that don't support the Ukraine war.
Okay, that's not fraud, to be clear.
No, it's not fraud, but it is still something that goes against the will of people. When you vote in that way against the people, you really violate you create a tension between the government and those people. When you create that tension, you're violating fidelity to our nation and what it stands for, what it should stand for. And when you do that, then chaos ensues, and there's going to be more people that are distrusting the government, and it's going to be a lot harder to have well-formed thoughts about what's going on. So.
All right. When it comes to Ukraine, just real quick, if people disagree with the funding, that's a separate conversation, but that isn't waste, fraud, and abuse. And so if Donald Trump is like, hey, we shouldn't send all this stuff to Ukraine, he can make that campaign promise, but that is completely separate from waste, fraud, and abuse. To kind of switch a little bit, let's talk about the Trump tax cut. So I think it's estimated every year we lose $500 billion due to the Trump tax cuts. Now, no one likes paying taxes, let's be real here. But if you want to actually be fiscally responsible, you either have to cut spending or you gotta raise taxes. So here's what Republicans do. They keep spending the same or even increase it, like I said, with the military or ICE. And then with taxes, they cut it. And then I guess the best way to put it is Republicans are man, we gotta be more responsible. So to do this, you need to bring in less money and spend more. It just seems incredibly silly to me.
Right. Well, I think for a good tax policy, you have to have those virtues that I mentioned at the beginning. You have to have the right of man to self-preservation, and you also have to have his ability to be charitable. And too much of a tax policy, you're levying too high a tax on those people, and they're unable to do that. It's a harder time to it's a harder time to do that, and also it also must concern what each person preserving themselves and also what they deserve, what they are due. And so what property tax does is that takes away from what every man is due his property, because you don't own your property, you have a lien if you don't pay, and so it's conditional ownership of your property. You have the government involved in that. And income tax, you are denying each man the full fruits of his labor, and when you do that, that takes away from his ability to provide everything and to use his money prudently. That will affect his prudence, and when he doesn't have prudence, or he doesn't have the ability to spend whatever, or to use the money in the best manner possible, then that affects the greater society. So.
Do you understand that there are just some things that citizens on their own and the private sector cannot provide for the public, and that we need tax funding for that?
Can you go into depth onto what some of those things are? Because if you didn't have a lot of these governmental organizations, you would have more charitability. You would have it coming from more of the culture of the heart.
For example, would we be able to build the international highway system or interstate highway system without any public support for collection?
I mean, you do realize a lot of these, for example, a lot of the infrastructure we're referring to, yeah, where do you think our taxpayer dollars go? A lot of that is contracted out. fraternity brother is actually here, whose family gets money to build that for the United States government. It goes right back to the corporations.
Didn't you say earlier that we should have private entities do auditing? I just think it's a little inconsistent, I guess.
What do you mean? You mean like Doge?
Like to have, like to say, well, you know, our taxpayer money is going to these private corporations when we, you know, contract them to build roads, but to also advocate for contracting auditing to private entities. Unless if I was unclear or mistaken about your policy position earlier.
Well, I would say, you know, you're going to have some level of, you know, corruption in private, in public. They're just, it's the way people are. It's human nature. And so, but I think there would be a greater conflict of interest if it was done publicly for the from the government for the government, rather than from the private sector for the government. And it more depends on the people that are doing it and their moral formation. It has nothing to do, or well, it does have something. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with whether it's private or public.
All right. I guess as a final little note, do you recognize that Democrats are just, is time up, or? All right, gotcha. Do you recognize that on general, like Democrats are just more fiscally responsible? The last balanced budget was under Clinton. Obama was able to radically decrease the deficit after the 2008 recession. Trump increased the deficit after Obama, largely because of the tax cuts. And then during 2020, he skyrocketed the deficit up to $3 trillion.
Well, yeah, I mean, different presidents are going to do different things, honestly. I mean, it doesn't really depend on the party. It just depends on it. Obviously, you pointed out that there are presidents in different parties that do that, but it has more to do with, you know, the policy and like it has to do with like the welfare and all of those things.
Well, I agree, different presidents do different things, but it's like consistently, like Democrats are just better on this issue than Republicans.
I'll also say it's a perspective issue. There's a big difference in perspective as well. I don't think either, I think we can agree, are responsible overall. However, I think there is a big difference on what money is going to between the different parties. And the reason we support how conservatives spend the money is because we care a lot about the issues that some of these inefficiencies are going to, whereas we don't support some of the issues where some of the democratic spending inefficiencies are going to.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess to just speak real quick, I really like how Democrats focus on, you know, spending welfare. I guess when it comes to high taxes, you can say that's a trade-off, but I'd rather my tax dollars just go to welfare programs than like $1 trillion to the military, for example.
One thing too that
We've got time. Now we're going to go into the closing statements. Go right into the closing statements. 1 to 2 minutes, please.
So I guess I just want to kind of recap what just happened. I didn't hear a single example of how Republicans are better when it comes to fiscal spending. And this is the major issue I have with the Republican Party, is that they'll virtue signal about a certain issue, and then when they get into power, they completely fail at resolving that issue. It's not just the case that both Republicans and Democrats are bad. If you look at the numbers, Republicans are just worse. Bill Clinton was, like I said, the last president to balance the budget, a Democrat. Obama had smaller deficits after the 2008 recession than Trump did later on. Trump unnecessarily cut taxes when the economy was already booming. His mismanagement of COVID led to a $3 trillion deficits during 2020. Just all the data points to Republicans being worse on this issue. And, you know, I love to have this, like, sort of higher order conversation about how should, you know, spending look like, you know, how should taxation look like. But if we don't exist in a factual reality where we acknowledge the facts, where we acknowledge where parties actually stand right now, we can't really have that conversation.
Right. Well, yeah, and I would say my moral, I am trying to have a higher order conversation here while my opponent is just focusing on the facts. But I just want to throw some things. Yeah, I'm just driving home some different, different aspects of fiscal responsibility here. So yeah, once again, right, the order DOGE should not target necessary programs. I mean, I'm in favor of keeping the necessary ones for running government, for example, in accordance with our fundamental principles. And I also think that it should promote transparency of funds as well in pursuit of truth for our society as well. And it should also promote, good governance like I talked about earlier. And also tax policies necessary for the self-preservation of each man, for be able to provide for each person and his family, and also for his charitable giving back to society. Because welfare can that can kind of overshadow that, and it can kind of cancel out that giving from the heart. And so, yeah, both self-preservation and charity are necessary for well-being of society. And so, yeah, we also have to consider justice when it comes to taxes, with preservation and what each person deserves, and it's not about distribution of wealth. It's not a material thing, because then you're just focusing on consequences. And when you focus on consequences, you forget about the causes of what those things are. When you forget about the causes, then you don't understand what the fundamental principles are that drive those, or the lack thereof. And yeah, the welfare state, like I said, excessive services, from the state, it diminishes charity, and it also diminishes your desire to find work as well. So, this is a Cato Institute study. The New Jersey mom of 2 in 7 different welfare programs is entitled to up to $38,728 a year. And then we see the correlation with this. Is 10% of adult welfare recipients are working unsubsidized jobs, and 32% are involved in work participation programs. So less than even like a quarter of the population is looking for work in charity in New Jersey.
All right. Thank you very much. We're at 30 minutes. Thank you for sponsoring that topic. Thank you for the rebuttal. Thank you so much, guys. Great job. We're going to move on to the next topic now. And the topic is abortion. And I'd like to have the Thank you. Give us a down.
I apologize, my dog is camera shy and has not learned how to be kind on camera just yet. Apologize.
All right. We're ready for our next topic now. If I could have your attention, please. Excellent. Again, great job, guys. Thank you so much for your participation. All right, we're ready to move on with the next topic. The next topic is abortion. And I'd like to ask for the 1 to 2 minute opening statement from Turning Point, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this important debate. Tonight we confront a fundamental question. When does human life deserve protection? The pro-life position is clear, rooted not in only an opinion or religion, but in undeniable science. From the moment of conception, a unique human being exists with its own DNA, heartbeat by week 6, and brainwaves soon after. As a 2021 survey of over 5,000 biologists confirmed, life begins at fertilization. This isn't just a clump of cells, it's a developing child, and as vulnerable as any newborn. Abortion ends that innocent life, often through procedures that no compassionate society should tolerate. Yet we hear arguments framing it as a mere choice, ignoring the second life at stake. Exceptions for the mother's life, like ectopic pregnancies, are already addressed in pro-life laws. But these are rare, accounting for less than 1% of cases. What about the 99%? We must prioritize support, expand adoption, maternal health care, and resources to empower women facing unplanned pregnancies, not the tragedy of abortion. Pro-choice rhetoric dodges reality by equating natural miscarriages with intentional acts, but intent matters. Miscarriages aren't homicide. No pro-life law investigates them as such. If we truly value equality, we can't exclude the unborn from basic human rights. Let's build a culture of life where every child is welcomed. I look forward to defending this tonight. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sophie Aslan, the only one up here talking with the uterus. Thank you. Thankfully, I volunteered to do this debate so you guys didn't have to listen to 4 dudes arguing about women's rights for like SoCal. This is my debate partner, Xander Burke, here to validate my claims and offer a more logical, less emotional standpoint. All of the views that we are about to defend are our own. We are here to represent the pro-choice side, but not necessarily be an amalgamation of their thoughts and views. So basically, we truly believe what we're about to say. Zarin and I are happy to agree that, biologically speaking, a life begins at conception, new genetic code is created, and the new organism begins growing and metabolizing. We would also agree that murder, the unjust killing of a human person, is wrong. But we will argue today that a human fetus, before a certain point, is not a person. Personhood, which for us is linked with the ability to have a conscious experience, begins between 20 and 24 weeks of gestation. This is the point where something becomes someone, and this someone can be harmed. More than 99% of abortions take place before this point. The pro-choice side of this debate would concede that after this point of consciousness, terminating the fetus itself might be a moral wrong, but disallowing abortion is a legal wrong. The illegalization of reproductive health care has and will cost women their life and their fertility. Without a doubt, the government, federal or state, should not have the power to regulate what medical operations a person and their doctor decide is the best for them. The vast majority of doctors would agree with this. Violating this right violates what we would consider someone's bodily autonomy or their legal right to choose what happens to their body.
Okay, thank you very much. Now there'll be a 3-minute period for clarification of terms, clarification of issues. Any questions to go back and forth?
You guys go first, so you can go first if you want.
All right, what do we consider an abortion?
Well, I feel like conceptually we probably all understand that it's the termination of a human fetus's life. There's multiple means by which this can be done. It can be done through medication or through a procedure.
Okay.
Okay. I wanted to ask about the kind of unique human existence point that you made at the start. You said that it begins at conception. I wanted to understand exactly where conception is for you guys. My understanding is that medically conception is a multi-phase process, so I wanted to know when that is for you guys.
When the sperm fertilizes the egg.
Okay. And there are points at which there's multiple sperm in the egg and the egg stops accepting other sperm. Is that about where you said?
No, what do you mean?
Well, there's, like, at that point, there is no genetic code created and nothing is duplicated or whatever. So I'm curious, like, it's before that point?
I mean, whenever I'm not sure exactly when in the process I took this class last semester, but no, when the actual creation of the new DNA, whenever the two DNAs with the egg and sperm are combined and cell division begins.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
You said at one point that you acknowledge that abortion is murder, but an unjust murder is what you think is unjust. What point exactly is murder just?
I believe you're talking about when I said that after that conscious experience, we don't need to illegalize abortion because, you said that these laws allow for the exception of, ectopic pregnancies or the life of the mother, but clearly it's not just as cut and dry as that. Women have, women have lost their life at the end of the day to post the overturning of Roe v. Wade because of these harsh abortion laws. You asked, can you repeat the question?
What point exactly do you justify murder?
So I did concede that it was a moral wrong, but at the end of the day, the life of the mother is more important to me. And that's 1% of abortion cases. You alluded to the fact that the 1% doesn't really matter. What about the other 99? So the 99% is more important to me.
Any other topics of clarification? Are we ready to start the discussion period? Okay, are you ready? Okay, we'll start with Turning Point. If you could open the discussion period, please.
All right, well, abortion's murder, it's wrong, so for instances, in the case of the life of the mother, or incest, there are laws in place in most states that are, protect the procedure. Now, how do you justify the 99% that are just elective? Guess I'm confused here.
The 99% that are just elective? What do you mean by that?
Well, I got a few different stats here. Between 99% and 96% of abortions are elective.
Meaning not forced?
Meaning that this doesn't, not including rape and incest, not including life of the mother, not including, ruining a dead fetus via completion of miscarriage. But, I'm not getting that here.
Right. Our point is not specifically that abortion is necessary in the case of rape. It's that abortion should be legal at all points. So when you say that 99% of abortion cases are not happening in the case of rape, that's it's irrelevant to our argument because we believe abortion should be legal at all points.
So you're saying abortion should be legal at all points. So you're saying you're justifying murder.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Yeah, it's pretty common, specifically for pro-life people, to frame conversations and ideas around the idea that a fetus is a human being. Again, we said it's not murder because it's not a person. It can't be protected by the same laws that a person in the United States is protected by. We don't believe it is a person, and if you saw it laying in a petri dish, you wouldn't believe it was a person either.
Why do you believe there's a difference between having a present consciousness and the high possibility of a future consciousness in the near future?
So the reason that we value a conscious experience is because that's the part about humans that are different from other animals. Obviously we have different DNA, of course, but that's the valuable part of a human being. When you talk about, harm reduction, who's it more harmful for? The fetus who is not a being, doesn't have a conscious experience, is experiencing nothing, or is it more harmful to, force the woman to carry to term something that she doesn't want, something that she probably didn't ask for? If you're looking to reduce harm, you have to consider who is being harmed.
What do you mean didn't ask for?
Well, if she's raped, she didn't ask for it. If she uses contraception, she didn't ask for it. Any kind of birth control, she didn't ask for it.
We have education in schools in states that allow abortions about contraception and how they are not fully effective. So when you choose to have sexual actions, there's always a possibility of being pregnant.
So are you in favor of abortion in the case of rape? When it's not a choice?
A rape only accounts for 0.4% of abortions.
Are you in favor of allowing abortions in the case of rape?
Personally, I am.
Sorry?
So personally, in that case, yes, I am.
You are? Okay. So you're okay with murder then, if it's conceived out of rape?
I don't agree with it, but I don't think that, in that case,
So two wrongs do make a right then?
this is my personal opinion, but yeah, I think that in that case, leave it up to the doctor and the woman, because, that's a very rare instance, and I'm not gonna put myself in the position to say that, I guess.
All right, well, thank you for looking out for women who are raped.
We talk about when it's not rape.
So assuming you're referring to the after the conscious experience, so after 20 to 24 weeks, you're focusing on the elective abortions that are in that time period.
Just all abortions that aren't because of rape.
So, like I said, before the 20 weeks, there's no conscious experience.
Yes.
So you're asking me why I think it's okay?
Why do you justify that?
Because you're not harming anyone. There is no one to speak of that is being harmed.
I mean, brainwaves start at 8 weeks. They can feel pain anywhere between 12 and 20. A fetus can live outside of the womb that's been documented at 21 weeks. So,
Right, that's after
I mean, the whole point of this, with the pro-lifers choosing the moment of conception, is that biologists do acknowledge that is when a new life begins. Now, what you consider to be, the human experience consciousness, that's debatable. Personhood is debatable, humanity isn't. So, I mean, do you, what do you say, what about aborting some, sorry, my mind here. So you're saying consciousness is where you draw the line of humanity, right? Yeah, well, I mean, what if someone's born without higher brain function, but they're still alive? Like, say, someone with a severe mentally handicapped, do you think that, they don't have the right to exist?
Yeah, our understanding is that person is still a person in the same way that, probably compared to Albert Einstein, I'm kind of an idiot, but I wouldn't say I didn't deserve to live. I would still say I'm a person because I've been born, I'm having a conscious experience. As to your points earlier, like about brainwave function and other functions while in the uterus, while we already established in our opening statement that we believe a fetus is alive, we just don't believe that it's a person. It doesn't have personhood that can be protected, and we understand that you frame it as a human life that is able to be protected legally, but that's not the way we see it. We don't see it as a person. And I can say again, in our opening statement, we mentioned that even if this thing had personhood, our understanding is that saying that it couldn't be terminated by the mother would be a violation of her bodily autonomy.
Why is the fixation on personhood as opposed to potential personhood? You still made the decision to become pregnant. Whether you chose, you were doing it to be pregnant or not, you still knew that there was a possibility of being pregnant. So why is it so important that the personhood, as you described it, hasn't happened yet, as opposed to will happen?
Yeah. This obsession with like whether the mother is at fault or not because she chose to have sex. We're not trying to demonize anyone for having sex or being raped, but in any instance, this is not a person to us. Okay.
So, would you be in favor of illegalizing recreational sex if it wasn't specifically to have a child, or at least if you intended on having an abortion if you were pregnant, then you should not be allowed to have sex because it could result in an abortion?
So you're saying that outlaw recreational sex for...
Well, just in case. I mean, if there's a possibility that it could end up in an unwanted child.
You're rolling the dice every time. I mean, it's an option, and
right,
it has consequences.
You want to outlaw abortion to avoid, the terminating of, or to avoid the terminating of this thing. But if you're taking part in recreational sex, exactly, you're rolling the dice. So you could be, that's like premeditated murder.
If that's the way you look at it.
So would you be in favor of illegalizing that?
Illegalizing abortion or illegalizing?
No, illegalizing recreational sex if you don't have the intent to keep the child.
No, I mean, you have plenty of, you have a choice whether to have sex. You can, do that, whatever. You don't have to do it to have kids, but if that does happen, you do have to accept the consequences, the reality that whenever you do have sex, that is a possibility.
So pro-choice for recreational sex, pro-life when it creates a child, which rolling the dice is doing every time?
I'm sorry, I'm not really following what
So I'm saying that I'm testing how much you care about protecting these lives, protecting these lives that you are considering people. So, I mean, we all know that legalizing abortion, it prevents a lot of them, but it doesn't prevent all of them. Many women who have decided that they don't want this child or want this thing growing in them, they do it themselves. They take it, and that costs lives as well. But if you're really concerned about this fetus, then wouldn't you want to outlaw or at least be in favor of complete and comprehensive sex education? Because we see that at least, contributes to less
Sex education, I got no problem with that. I mean,
okay.
but I mean, talking about outlawing sex to prevent an accidental, pregnancy. There are so many other options aside from just abortion. If you have sex and your birth control doesn't work, you don't get commit murder, we call it. To remedy that, there are plenty of other options. You can choose adoption or motherhood. I mean, there's plenty of other options before you just get straight up murder.
So one of those options changes your life forever. It could be in a good way, it could be in a terrible way.
You mean motherhood?
Right.
Yeah, well, that's why there's adoption. There are like over 2 million families right now who want to adopt kids, and they're having a hard time doing that because...
So we should force women to have their kids.
Well, I mean, I force them to live with the consequences of their actions.
Yeah. You keep saying, like, live with the consequences of your actions, and it's so strange to me that you think, like, a child is the consequence of your action, and that child needs to be had. And, like, once again, we don't understand it as murder, but you shouldn't see, regardless, having a child as some sort of consequence for an action. And it seems so strange to me that, like, that's your immediate jumping off point when we're trying to talk about personhood. Because as we understand it, you can measure when your life ends. That's when your consciousness ends, your brain is no longer functional, you don't exist as a human being. And so our understanding is that you can measure when a life begins. And that is not measured by some sort of potential that you guys believe exists. Because my understanding is that if we wanted every potential human life to exist in the maximum form, then every woman should just be pregnant all the time, because then we'd have the most maximum lives. It doesn't make sense to me. We're trying to measure when personhood begins. You guys focusing on this humanity argument doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why you want to talk about the conscious experience.
So you bring up how when personhood ends.
Right.
So are you saying that just because a person's dead, it's okay to desecrate their body? Because before and after, it's the same thing, just beforehand instead of after.
Are you saying that? What do you mean desecrate? Can you clarify?
So it is a very brutal process to abort a baby. It either involves poisoning the baby through pills or doing other things that are just, I don't even want to talk about in large group.
Okay. Our understanding is that, once again, this is not a baby. I'm sure that you have, like, I feel like you guys probably eat steak all the time, and that cow was killed in, like, a crazy way, and you guys are like, oh my God. But that's just not what's happening to this person. And I, once again, would like you guys to talk about the conscious experience. I asked you what you mean by desecrate a dead body. What do you guys mean?
Okay, I think that this is where the fundamental disagreement between pro-life and pro-choice people comes. You guys argue for personhood. We argue for humanity. Humanity begins, human development begins at conception. You're saying that life doesn't begin until draw a line? No, you can't do that because each one's unique. I mean, like I said, 8 weeks, brainwaves. I mean,
So from, again, we wouldn't draw a line anywhere just because women have died because of these lines being drawn. But from a moral standpoint, I mean, 20 to 24 weeks, I guess you could say after 20 weeks, just go on the safe end to say it's immoral after that. But I actually did want to push back on this, is it okay to desecrate someone's body after they die? I mean, we bury them in the ground where they go to decompose. Some people like to be burned to ash and put in a jar. I mean, that's pretty, like, desecrating, if you ask me. I wouldn't want somebody to bury me in the ground if I was still alive.
Most of the time when someone dies, they follow the wishes of how they want it to be, or it's like the most important person in their life, someone who actually knew them as a person. In this case, before the birth, no one even knows them as a person because they haven't had a chance to live yet. They just began their life. Literally, they have done nothing right nor wrong in their entire life.
Who is this they you're talking about?
The unborn baby.
So we're talking about before the conscious experience?
Yes, and after.
Okay, so before the conscious experience, you're right. You said after somebody dies, their body is done, we go by their wishes with what they want done to their body. This fetus has no wishes. It could care less, if you ask me, because it can't care about anything. It's not being harmed because it doesn't have an experience to go by. So you're not harming anything. You're not going against anyone's wishes, except for when you legalize abortion and force the mother to have a child.
Okay, so, you're agreeing that it is a unique human life before, but that it doesn't become a person until it gets consciousness. So,
5 minutes.
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
All right. Well, he I quote him another where we're making notes about something like this. Is anyone here familiar with the comedian Bill Burr? You know who Bill Burr is? It's you take cake, make batter, put in the oven. Someone comes in, takes the cake out of the oven, throws it in the ground, and says, "You really think it's not cake yet?" Well, it would have been. Just going back to the potential that we're talking about. So you can't really draw a line of where personal begins. So that's the doubt that we do is we start at who life begins.
So are you saying because we can't draw like an exact line, like we can't point to an exact spot, then it must not exist?
Well, can't point out.
So if I start like dropping pieces of salt on this table, can you tell me the exact moment that it becomes a pile of sand as opposed to just a few pieces of sand or a few specks of sand?
Sand is still sand.
But is it a pile of sand? Is it a speck of sand? We're not saying that this thing isn't like a human life. We're not saying that it doesn't have human DNA. But we're not saying that it changes its DNA or like the basic foundation of what it is. It's just that at some point there becomes an experience that we want to protect over
back in the day, they thought life began whenever the baby drew its first breath, and then they went on to start saying that life began whenever the quickening happened, whenever the mother could feel the child move. And now we're finding out that, a unique strand of DNA, a unique human life is created at conception. So, you draw a line somewhere, and then the further medical science progresses, the more we're able to know.
So it's like just in case kind of thing? Like it's like just in case.
I'd rather not murder someone and, err on the side of caution than just like, it's not consciousness net. I just really don't.
So what if, let's just say a higher power came down right now and said, cows actually have something similar to a human experience. They should be given moral value. Are you gonna stop eating steak? Are we gonna outlaw all
If God came down and told me to stop eating steak, I'll probably stop eating steak.
I don't want to have some sort of I don't know where this is going, but I feel like it's religious and I don't want to talk about it. I would say, as far as we understand it, you can say brainwaves started at 8 weeks, but our understanding is that the brain starts interacting with other parts of the brain around 20 to 24 weeks. And that's bioethicists' understanding of what the brain is doing. That's biologists' understanding of what the brain is doing. We understand that something has human DNA. You don't think that you can terminate it. But
12 to 20 weeks is a big spread there, dude.
Go ahead.
12 to 20 weeks is a pretty wide, it's a big spread between when it feeling pain. Would you consider that part of the human experience?
Well, I said 20 to 24 weeks. than that.
Yeah, but
yeah, feeling pain.
the
of
baby can
course.
feel painted.
Yeah.
12 weeks.
There's a lot of like trying to frame this as a person when it's not, and feeling pain is part of that. Other things are like characterizing it as brain waves, when the reality is that like original synapses are maybe firing but not interacting with each
So
other.
you see what I'm saying about it all being a unsure kind of gray area, and we're just saying, hey, life starts here.
Yeah. It's not a gray area for us because it doesn't have any.
It sure sounds like one.
Right, it doesn't, because before 20 weeks it is not having a conscious experience. So there's no gray area.
That's time.
All right, that's time. Thank you guys both. Both teams. We're going to go into the closing statements now. I'm going to start with Turning Point.
What makes humanity special? Humanity is special because we have a basic understanding of right and wrong. As human beings, we have a duty and an obligation to use this gift. The big debate here is surrounding when exactly life begins. Bill Burr may be a pro-choice, but he even acknowledges abortion is killing. I quote, "That would be like if I was making a cake and I poured some batter in a pan and I put it in the oven, and then 5 minutes later you came by and grabbed the pan and you threw it across the floor. I'm like, what the buzzword? You just ruined my birthday cake." A so-called clump of cells is still human cells. There is a reason why the murder of a pregnant woman is classified as a double homicide. Should we allow one type of murder, then it opens the door to more. This is why the justification that an unborn baby is not a baby is an inherently flawed argument. Some also argue on behalf of abortion using excuses of rape, incest, and life of the mother. The truth is, though, that rape and incest only account for 0.4% of abortions, and risking a woman's life only accounts for 0.3%, while elected reasoning accounts for 95.9% of abortions. The overwhelming majority of abortions are a matter of choice. The same couple that aborted their baby also made the choice to perform an act of potential conception. It is something we learned long before the age of sexual activity, that our actions have consequences. And an unwanted baby is a potential consequence of having sex without wanting a baby. I chose to debate on this topic because it sickens me that people believe it is morally dignified to trade the life of someone who has done literally nothing right nor wrong for the convenience of theirs. Liberty is not about the ability to do whatever you want, but about trusting human beings with the dignity and respect to restrain themselves from what is wrong. I am a huge fan of...
Thank you. College Democrats, 1 to 2 minute closing statement, please.
Right. So throughout the debate, I feel like we've had an issue with framing where a human becomes a human, and the attempt on Turning Point's side is to err on the side of caution and be like, well, what about conception when this thing has not had a human experience, it has no consciousness? We've said this multiple times throughout the debate. There's inarguably, in cases of rape, obviously abortion should be legal. Nobody would argue that point. But the other side only brings it up to kind of make a claim where maybe things are like inherently a little bit sketchy and we don't know what to do. And the opposing side even agreed that in cases of rape, abortion should be legal. So should murder be legal in cases of rape? No, probably not. I think probably the other side would say that abortion should be legal in cases of rape because it understands that a fetus is not a person. And we have maintained that throughout this debate. We told you that before 20 weeks, there's no conscious experience in a fetus, and I still believe that. Of course, 99% of abortions are happening before this point, the 20-week point. And earlier in their opening statement, my opponent said, what about the 99%? I ask you again, what about the 99% of abortions that are not happening while the fetus has a conscious human experience? Thank you.
Great discussion, thank you all. Thank you all. Let's hear it again for that our participants. Do we need to change our team again? All right, again, great discussion. Thank you so much. Our third and final topic for the evening is, if I could have your attention, please. Our third and final topic for this evening is immigration. This includes ICE policy and border security. Again, we're going to open this one up with the Turning Point representatives. And if you could start your 1 to 2 minute opening statement, please.
Immigration has played a major role in shaping the United States. For generations, immigrants have come to this country and contributed to our economy, culture, and communities in countless ways. However, recognizing the benefits of immigration does not mean that immigration should be unlimited or unregulated. The enforcement of immigration law is essential for the stability and security of any developed nation. Governments have responsibility to know who is entering their borders and ensure that those who enter do so lawfully. In a world where transnational crime, drug trafficking, and national security threats exist, immigration regulation is one of the primary tools nations use to protect their citizens and maintain order. Immigrating into the United States is also more than simply changing legal status or moving into a new address. It represents a commitment to become part of a shared society that includes learning the language, respecting the laws, and participating in civic life, and embracing the duties and responsibilities that come with every nation. So the question in this debate is not whether immigration has benefits, it clearly does. The real question is whether the United States has the right responsibility to regulate immigration in a way that protects its citizens, maintains national security, and preserves the integrity of its legal system. And when individuals enter the country illegally, the question becomes how a government committed to the rule of law should respond.
Thank you very much. And for the College Democrats, 1 to 2 minute opening statement, please.
Conservatives' rhetoric on immigration is built entirely on lies. Trump ran a campaign blaming economic problems on immigrants, despite empirical data showing that immigrants are a massive net positive for the economy. Republicans continue to blame immigrants for violent crimes, despite the fact that immigrants, and especially undocumented immigrants, commit significantly less crime per capita compared to native-born citizens. Conservatives lie about Joe Biden having an open border policy, despite Biden matching the rate of detentions and deportations from the first Trump administration. Trump lied when he said Haitians were eating cats and dogs. He lied when he accused Somalians of widespread fraud. These lies have authoritarian and lethal consequences. At least 38 people have died in ICE detention during the second Trump administration. Over 170 citizens have been detained by ICE. Immigrants with no criminal records are being sent to foreign prison. We have all seen the videos of Renee Good and Alex Petty being killed. The Trump administration has covered up these deaths by refusing to do any investigations or cooperate with local police. Obviously, border enforcement is important. Obviously, we do not want people entering this country illegally. But instead of focusing on real solutions, conservatives have weaponized immigration enforcement to harass vulnerable communities and target political opponents. As such, conservatives' policies on immigration have been a complete and total failure.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're entering a 3-minute clarification period. Clarification of issues, clarification of rhetoric, clarification of terms. Any discussion on that?
When you say like enforcement, you would say like obviously enforcement should meet a certain ethical standard, right? Like the cops should follow due process, they should follow constitutional limits.
Yes, and I would like to say there are due process and constitutional limits even with enforcement such as like ICE.
All right, gotcha. And then do you have any questions for us?
I think we're good to go.
All right, we can use the rest of that time to our open discussion.
20-minute discussion then? Okay, that's fine. Go right ahead.
So, when it comes to immigration, who do you think was better on the border, Biden or Trump?
Trump.
How so?
You say that they didn't have an open border policy, but if you look at the sheer numbers of people pouring into this country, and then there not being any consequences following up for doing so, that is an extreme failure. One of the main purposes of any organized society, one of the main purposes of government is to protect its citizens. And when you have people coming in at that magnitude, you don't know their intention, you don't know their background, that is a huge threat to national security.
I don't necessarily disagree, but the issue with you blaming it on Biden is that this spike in immigration actually started under the first Trump administration, April of 2020, and then the actual decrease in immigration happened under Biden's term in 2024. By 2024, immigration had already significantly decreased.
Could you clarify when you say immigration had decreased during Biden's term?
Wait, sorry, could you restate that question?
Would you clarify what you mean by that? Like, what proof or statistics or numbers is there?
So when it comes to the specific numbers, the peak of immigration, I believe, happened in 2022. That was a 21-year high at that point in time, and then 2023 you saw a decrease, and then 2024 you saw another decrease. I don't have the specific numbers on me, I'll just admit it, but if you want them after the debate, I know they exist, I know this is a fact.
Kind of what I would say to that is I think a lot of that was ramifications that came from the term even before that. So if you look at 2017 through 2020, there were 2.4 million encounters on the U.S. border, which was 3 times higher than between the 2021 through 2024 period compared to the presidents in the previous 4 years.
Yeah, sure, but that spike happened initially under Donald Trump. And also with Joe Biden, there's this idea of like, oh, he was just releasing immigrants into the country. This is just simply untrue. Biden's arrest numbers when it came to people illegally crossing the country was the same rate as Trump during the first administration. Biden increased ICE detentions 12-fold by 12 times. This idea, I think that Biden just had an open border policy is just wrong. But I mean, we can agree to disagree on that. I'm willing to let that slide. But when it comes to Trump enforcing immigration now, will you admit that he has definitely gone way too far with some of the cases? Like, we can talk about Renee Good and Alex Reddy if you like.
I would like to talk about specific cases instead of overgeneralizing anything.
All right, so when it comes to Renee Good, do you think it's completely unjustified that there is no investigation that came out of that shooting?
I think anytime there's anything involving law enforcement, government, anything that's government regulated, honestly, privately is for that matter as well. Going back to what we talked about earlier with transparency, I think there needs to be checks and balances in all shapes and sizes and forms. And that is one case where I think there should be, I think anytime anyone dies from law enforcement, there should be some kind of, hey, what happened? Like looking into that.
And the Trump administration is purposely covering this up.
How so?
So, like, why aren't they cooperating with local Minnesota officials? Why aren't they investigating this at all?
I think that goes 2 ways. I think it's really hard to cooperate with someone who doesn't cooperate with you back. Cooperation, in the definition of the word cooperation, implies that there's a 2-way cooperating happening. You look at the leadership that we have in Minnesota, it is out of control, complete insanity. That I don't think that is something that you can really say you can cooperate with.
So I think just for framing, when Tim Walz or I believe Jacob Frey, their extreme rhetoric that Republicans point towards is, hey, record ICE agents so we know what they're up to. The dangerous rhetoric is, hey, make sure you're peacefully protesting. And then the dangerous rhetoric from Trump and his cronies is that Renee Good was a domestic terrorist. Do you believe Renee Good was a domestic terrorist?
Depends how you define domestic terrorism, honestly. But I would say when you put yourself in a compromising situation, I don't think you should ever, for one, put yourself in a situation where law enforcement has to question your intent to their livelihood. And when you put yourself in a situation where someone feels like we have the right to defend ourselves, law enforcement, that extends to them as well. I think she put herself in a situation where law enforcement was unaware of what was happening. To me, from what I've seen, if I was an officer, I would have been fearful for my life as well.
So you can watch the video. The guy who shot really good. There's no evidence that he was ever hit. The closest you get is when he's leaning over the vehicle to shoot Renee Good in the face. But even when it comes to that shooting, you didn't really answer the question. Do you think Renee Good is a domestic terrorist? Or, and if so, like, what is your definition of domestic
I'm
terrorist?
not exactly sure what I would define as domestic terrorism. I would define it, first of all, domestic, some kind of terrorism coming internally. As she was a U.S. citizen, I think she fulfills the domestic aspect of that. Terrorism, I think terrorism implies she has some sort of intent to do mass harm. I don't think she necessarily had intent to kill anyone that day. If anything, I would say she committed a criminal action, just like, I don't think she was a domestic terrorist. She committed an act that I think is illegal. And when you commit illegal actions, especially against someone like an armed law enforcement officer, there are consequences that follow those actions.
So, I guess to finish up for me, I don't necessarily disagree with everything you're saying, but again, it comes down to the facts. When it comes to like Renee Good, did she break the law or not? I'm not sure. There's been no investigation to show that she was breaking the law. We've all seen the video. She was out of the way at ICE at the time. Now that doesn't mean she wasn't breaking the law beforehand. Like I said, we don't know, but maybe if Donald Trump actually investigated this, maybe if he didn't cover it up. Yeah, and then with Alex Petty, we can talk about that because I think that is much worse.
Right, before we transition to there, I've also seen the video myself. Once again, I think that no matter what she was doing before there, the fact that in the video, you hear her partner go, 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 encouraging her to drive. There was an officer in front of the car, so you can't just do that. You just can't make that decision.
All right. Also, it's against protocol for officers to step in front of the vehicle, so I think this guy who shot. But if you want to add, you can have the last word if there's anything else you want to add for Renee Good.
I don't think, obviously, we're going to agree eye to eye on that issue. I'm going to move on to the next interviewer.
All right. So when Kristi Noem said Alex Petty was brandishing a firearm, that was a complete lie, right?
As in, he had it out and was like waving it or whatnot?
Yeah, he never touched his firearm.
I'm not sure.
All right, so I encourage you to watch the video, but there's no evidence that he ever brandished a firearm. So if what I'm saying is true, Kristi Noem completely lied, and she should have been impeached immediately. Now, thankfully, she's gone because she was having an affair with a staffer, but...
Is there a question?
Well, the question was, you think like Kristi Noem should have been immediately fired for lying?
I mean, it depends on the policies in place for that. I think one thing we talk about a lot in like philosophy, for example, is the difference between what someone is cognitively able to stay up to date with and the moral responsibility as an elected official that they have in staying up to date versus what is actually possible for human cognition. Do I think people need to be fired every time they make a mistake or they see something completely out of line? Not necessarily. I think there's things in place for that. Also, with it being a public official, there are checks and balances, especially us as the people. And I think that's where you have opportunities there as people of the United States to take action and get some of those things fixed. But I think there is a social responsibility if you are in any public office to make sure you're not just saying things, but to make sure that you're saying the truth. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I believe she should have been instantly removed at that moment for saying something that may or may not have been completely accurate.
All right. Here's the issue, right? If this was just a simple mistake, like if she said something wrong and then was corrected and then made another statement correcting the record, I would be much less upset. She has never corrected the record. In fact, she doubled down multiple times. You mentioned checks and balances, which I agree, but the issue is that the entirety of the Republican Party, at least elected, has surrendered any responsibility on checking Donald Trump. They're willing to go along with anything he does. You see it with these shootings, especially. There's a little bit of push it back, which is why they got rid of, I believe, Baldino and put in Hoffman, which is an all right thing to do. But the issue is that there will never be justice for these people. Do you guys agree there should have been an investigation for Alex Petty, 100%?
As I said at the very beginning, anytime anyone dies with anything, whether it's a person versus a person, as in like two civilians, or a civilian and an officer, anytime there's any death in our country, I think that should be investigated.
And then why do you think it wasn't investigated this time?
Not sure.
I'm almost completely certain that Trump doesn't investigate it because, like, an authoritarian person can never take responsibility because it undermines their authority.
I mean, I would like... Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, when we look at what happened with Renee Good, maybe there's like I could see that going to a jury trial and like Jonathan Ross being acquitted, all right? I could see that happening. But the issue is when you have an administration where after the shooting, they make it clear they're not going to investigate it. They make it clear that they're going to cover it up for you. They make it clear that they're going to lie about the victim and call them a domestic terrorist. Is it really a surprise that a few weeks later that a few ICE agents went out and killed this guy? If you look at the following video, Alex Petty was maced in the face. He was brought down to the ground. He was surrounded. There was almost basically nothing he could have done in that situation.
Yeah, I would like to just clarify something to some of the points you're making. You're blaming the lack of judicial review over this instance on Donald Trump and his administration. I'd like to remind you, the executive branch serves to carry out the law. The investigation would then have nothing to do with Donald Trump at all.
Is the DOJ under the executive branch?
You would?
The DOJ under the executive branch, Department of Justice?
Yes.
And then who does investigations on the federal level?
What I'm saying is the judicial review process would not be done that way.
Yep. How do you think a judge hears a case? A judge can't just go and launch investigations. You need some sort of executive prosecutor to bring forth the case, and then it gets heard in front of a judge. But if there's no executive willing to bring forth the case, a judge can't do anything.
You bring up Trump specifically, making this whole argument about one man.
Who's the president right now?
He is the president, yes. Acknowledge that. But there are, what I think Carlos is trying to say is that there is more than just one man involved in this process. So is your attack on the Trump policy or is your attack on the DOJ leadership?
So Trump, as the president under Article 2, he appoints the head of these cabinets, and not only that, we know that he directs the DOJ. We've seen it in his tweets where they went after James Comey, when they went after his political opponents. So yeah, 100% the DOJ listens to Trump. And even still, the DOJ is, Pam Bondi was appointed by Donald Trump, so he bears at least some responsibility.
Once again, though, I'd just like to point out the fact that I don't think it's solely on Trump to review all of this processes. That's why we have separation of powers.
The separation of powers relates to like checks on the executive, but the executive still needs to do the job.
And I believe he is.
Like, can you name how like checks and balance would help in this scenario where the executive refuses to do an investigation? Besides impeachment, if you want to argue for the impeachment,
We have judicial review in place for these instances.
The impeachment would be in place for these instances?
No, I'm saying for instances in which, for example, you're referring to people who have died due to immigration enforcement. We have policies and procedures in place for those kind of judicial reviews, but that wouldn't have anything.
What's an example of one? I understand what you're saying. I don't want to be like, oh, give me a specific example, but how the government works is that the executive is the people who bring the case, and if the executive refuses, the state level could do it, but like I already mentioned, they refuse to cooperate with the state level, so the state can't even get enough information to get a grand jury indictment to actually bring prosecutions forward. But if you want to move away from Alex Petty, I get that. It's definitely a really hard case. The thing that annoys me so much is that if Trump was just a better person and just investigated these cases, it's just such an obvious thing to do. There's no excuse for why these things aren't being investigated. And it's ultimately his executive branch that's responsible and why these people were killed. But is there any point you want to bring up, or because
I think we're focusing a lot on the few bad apple cases, and instead of, yes, I acknowledge that bad apples should be investigated, yes, but there are a lot of cases where certain people were put away, where they could have caused more violence to our community, and the bottom line is that enforcement of ICE is, for the most part, legally done, and that keeps us safe. So I guess my question is, why are we focusing on the small cases and in this argument right now?
5 minutes.
If you look at the South during like Jim Crow, for example, what is probably true is that the vast majority of the law enforcement they did was probably had very little to nothing to do with like racial segregation. And it kind of feels like what you're saying is, it's like, yes, it's true that like these are like bad cases and these aren't actually the role, and generally speaking. But the issue is that there's no justice whatsoever for these people. These people are going to die, and there will be no justice for them because Trump covered it up. And that's just a plain and basic fact, and there's no excuse for it. We can say it's a few bad cases, but that's just the truth of the matter.
I would like to ask, like, I know a lot of these issues that we're talking about, I feel like we've only talked about like 2 specific things this entire time. And I do get that those branch out of larger immigration policies, but I would like to point out, I don't feel like we have done an adequate job of actually talking about general, like, I feel like this hasn't been very immigration oriented. I feel like it's been, you're picking out these 2 instances that just had me really upset. And I'm not saying you don't have a reason to be upset.
Yeah, I'm upset when like people get killed.
Yes, which is, I'm not saying you don't have that right, but I feel like we have kind of got sidetracked and we are not actually talking about the larger issues of like immigration here. So do you have any like actual immigration policy, order, any of that stuff you'd like to talk about?
Well, let's talk about how Trump's immigration policy is racist. So do you think it's weird that we're basically cutting off all refugees from all countries except specifically white South Africans? That feels a little weird to me.
I mean, I think I would like to point out enforcement, 1, reflects migration patterns, not race. 2, I think it's very situational depending on what is happening with those parts of the world. I don't think none of it is race. It's not race. It's geopolitical. And yeah, that encapsulates certain races, but it's not exactly a race issue. And then that was actually upheld by the Supreme Court in 2018, that it wasn't unconstitutional, that the restrictions were based off of largely U.S. vetting capabilities, not race, but also the threats that are determined to come out of like certain areas of the world.
So what geopolitical situation is why we're only accepting white South Africans? If there is a reason, please inform me.
You're saying that we are only currently accepting white South Africans in the country right now?
Yes, for refugees. I believe Trump is aiming for, I think, 7,000, and that's basically, that goes over the actual limit that they have put for refugees, which is 4,000 a month. So we're actually exceeding the limits that Trump has put on, specifically for these white South Africans. And look, maybe the white South Africans, I'm open to all immigrants. If they want to come here, go right ahead. But I don't think that we should prioritize just these people at the expense of all other people. And just to go on, Trump says incredibly racist things. Like when Haitians are eating cats and dogs, which is completely untrue. J.D. Vance admitted it was untrue. He called Somalis trash, garbage. It feels very racially directed.
I mean, I'm not going to say that those statements don't sound racially directed, but I think there also is a difference between extreme rhetoric and actual immigration policy.
Well, the actual immigration policy is like removing TPS for these groups of people so they all get sent home. Like, we're sending Somalis back home to their country where they fled, and it's completely unsafe for them to go there. I think that's really
I also would argue it's unsafe for us for them to come here. You look at what's happening in Somalia right now. There is a need there. There is a strong need there. It is a very impoverished, very corrupt. The people who do have wealth and money in Somalia are abusing it to the detriment of the people there. But I don't think that means that we should just allow any and all Somali people to migrate to the United States just because we at the end of the day, we have to put America first. If we have the resources to take in people and actually support them, that's one thing. But just to be like, this one part of the world's in trouble, let's let them all in.
Well, that's what he's doing with South Africa right now, right? There's one part of the world that still happens to be white people.
I have not seen anything personally that says that he's only accepting white people from South Africa. I just quite honestly don't believe that.
We shared sources beforehand, and I provided that. But when it comes to immigration, right? I don't know. I feel like if a Somali comes here and commits crime, obviously they should be deported. But when you're deporting people who have followed our laws, like you said in our intro, who respect our culture, who respect our system, and we're still deporting them, and when Trump blanket statement calls them garbage when they say they're eating cats and dogs, I think that's just racist.
That's time, so we'll go to final statements.
Okay. Final closing statements. First from Turning Point, 1 to 2 minutes, please.
Do all of you have locks on your doors?
You all have locks for the simple reason that it is your house and you want to protect what's inside. As taxpayers, we own and invest in this country, and we have the right to protect it. No one has a right to be American. It is a privilege to be American. Yes, we may be granted human rights upon our existence, but that does not include the right to live in the greatest country in the world. In order to live in a more civil society, your first act of coming into this country cannot be a crime. There are legal ways to enter this great country, and it only punishes those who did so the right way to look the other way at those who did it the wrong way. In my place of employment, I speak with a very diverse group of people in regards to national origin. People who are extremely respectful despite language or cultural barriers. People spend lots of money, wait their turn, and seek education in the way this country works because they want to be a part of it. After this, these people seek to work hard and do right by society, just to be slapped metaphorically in the face by people sneaking into this country without doing any of the work to earn this great privilege. ICE is a law enforcement agency protecting you from those who choose to break the law by coming here, not those who came here legally. This ensures your personal safety from those that came here legally. Policing illegal immigration helps defend this country. Just look at the data. In 2024, under a lax ICE policy administration, there were 1,084 illegal immigrants arrested for assault, battery, and domestic abuse. Last year, it was 704, significantly lower. Looking at the actual statistics, we see reductions like these among capital crimes across the spectrum. Should our goal be to reduce these crimes, or should we just let them continue to grow? Because law enforcement is actually enforcing the law from the beginning, instead of waiting until crimes are committed, we are preventing more and more violence from entering this country. The streets are safer, I am safer, you are safer. The safety of this nation relies on securing our border. Thank you all and have a great night.
Closing statement, please.
I first want to apologize to my beautiful girlfriend for mansplaining the entire debate. But
I tried to stop.
When it comes to immigration, I cannot reiterate, conservative rhetoric on immigration is built on lies. I feel like there's this Moat and Bailey argument that's played where when you look at how conservative politicians campaign, it's very clear that they hate immigration, that they even attack legal immigrants. When you look at what happened to Renee Good and Alex Preddy, you can say like, oh, these are two isolated cases, but the issue isn't that these two people just got killed. The issue is that the administration has done everything in its power to make sure that there's never justice for these people. When you look at immigrants in general, all data points to them being extremely beneficial for the economy, whether they're high skill or low skill. Now, this doesn't mean that we should have necessarily open borders and invite absolutely everyone in. It doesn't mean that, illegal immigrants don't come over and do bad things. And when they do bad things, it's really bad. But what it does mean is that there's an actual facts of the matter. And the fact of the matter is that Republicans have lied on this issue so much, and it has created so much hate and division, and it has distracted us. When it comes to making immigration safer, it's not making us safer. ICE has detained 170 citizens. That's people who are here, not just legally, but have gone through the legal process or even been born here. How can we say that's safe when these people are being detained? It's not uncommon for people to be transferred thousands of miles away from their home states and have no way getting back because of ICE. This is a lawless agency. And I agree, at least on paper, with my interlocutors here, that we should have immigration enforcement. We should come together on this issue. But immigration enforcement...
Time. I'm sorry, that's time.
Needs checks and balances.
Yeah, all the participants, would you come up on
Participate
stage?
in the debate, please.
And can we give them all a great deal of
Round of
applause? Thank you all for demonstrating civility and intelligence tonight. Did you guys enjoy this tonight? Is this something you should do again?
Absolutely.
Darcy had fun.
I appreciate the fact that, you know, these are all very tough issues, and they're not clear-cut issues. And the fact that Missouri State and these groups are able to come together and have these types of discussions, and they just open up a world of possibilities for critical thinking for everybody. And I think that's the best thing, and that's where everything starts to begin to heal some of the divisions that we all experience. So I want to express my thanks to the Missouri State University, specifically to Turning Point, and the MSU College Democrats for participating in such a great event. And thank you all for coming. We could not have these kind of venues without all of your participation. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope that we can do this again in the future.
Well, if we let the administration know that this was a good educational experience, we'll be allowed to come back again. It's not always the easiest for us to reserve this room for these kinds of events. Anytime it says something that they deem political, it becomes problematic. And I also wanted to say, if you're interested in learning more about a civic discourse across party, across politics, across the spectrum, I encourage you to take some of our classes over in the communication department, but specifically in the socio-political communication program, which just started again January 1st of this year. Thank you very much. And we learn about exactly how to do these kinds of events. And thank you so much for stepping in today. We appreciate you.
And thank you all for coming once again, and have a blessed evening.
Good night.
That